Okay, so I think this is video 7, chapter 5. Gaining from the teachings instead of being inhibited by the stories. This psychological versus psycho-spiritual, or tree of knowledge versus tree of life polarity, has really got me thinking. It seems that in our disconnect from source, and our lack of psycho-spiritual understanding of how life works, we create our own sense of security so that we can feel safe in the world. To do this, we seem to psychologically buy into some belief or other, many of which are structured around religious historical stories and characters, to give us something to align ourselves with as regards how we should behave in the world. For many of us, this tends to be the yardstick that we use as our moral and ethical compass once we have outgrown what our parents instilled in us in childhood. For some people, this subconscious yardstick is simply a continuation of what their parents or culture's sense of right and wrong was, as was the case for myself, whilst for many others it is alignment with a religious understanding and its respective historical story. But it seems to me that our over-identification with these beliefs simply gives us too rigid a mindset and simply leaves us all arguing and fighting about whose story is right or wrong, actually moving us all out of connection with the spiritual guidance that exists within all of them. Surely then we are not in tune with them in the way that we are invited to be and gaining from how they mean to help us. If this is what becoming mindset on our religious stories and introjected beliefs is doing for us, then surely are we getting it wrong. Surely we are eating of the tree of knowledge instead of the tree of life. Remembering that this whole thing that I keep mentioning, tree of knowledge, tree of life, is basically going back to Genesis, where Source, God, whatever you want to call it, gives Adam this first, what I call the first commandment, which comes before the 10 commandments of the Old Testament and the 2 of the New Testament. Where God actually commands Adam to eat of the tree of, to not eat of the tree of knowledge, basically. So in other words, eat of the tree of life. And a lot of what this book keeps anchoring on is that stuff. If this is what becoming mindset on our religious stories and introjected beliefs is doing for us, then surely we are getting it wrong. Surely we are eating of the tree of knowledge instead of the tree of life. If we are not behaving as per the teachings within these religions and other forms of guidance within life, and are simply squabbling about who is right or wrong, then we can't be getting it right, and there is something that we are missing. But can we find a way to live in harmonious relationship without the historical religious stories and beliefs that seem to cause the arguments, especially when that is all we have been shown, all that we have ever been shown, and we have become conditioned over generations to rely on the way of knowledge, this way of knowledge seeming to have served our survival and give us a sense of understanding and security? From personal experience, I can say yes, we can, but only if we can be shown a new rock to stand on to help us to do it. We can't cut away our only lifeline without a new one being in place first. And this is why most people are hanging on to something that doesn't work and are invested in the self with its self-righteous psychological and scientific ways of knowing everything. Surely if we can be shown something else that works better, perhaps a purer understanding of the original, then we can all begin to move towards this other way of living. Surely we can move towards finding a better way to be in relationship with each other once we can see the common error of living from the tree of knowledge and living out of our fixated beliefs about religious stories, being so mindset about religions that the mindset itself undermines what the religion aims to do. Perhaps we can all live more lovingly when we are not defending different stories and different interpretations of these stories, as this certainly seems to me to be what is causing all the trouble. Hopefully we can then progress by focusing more on the common messages within the religions about how to live together, by remaining present to the teachings and applying them. So rather than be caught up in defending the story that we are invested in, we will be more loving, kind, forgiving and understanding beings towards each other. To me this all seems simple enough, but from my experience I see us fail when it comes to dropping below a certain level of sacrifice. We all seem happy enough to give as long as it is from our surplus, but fail when it comes to doing without for the sake of another. It is also only doable if we really do understand and therefore really do have the ability to forgive and be loving and kind. Saying that we forgive and understand from our tree of knowledge is one thing, but actually feeling forgiveness and understanding from the tree of life is another. Forgiveness is only real and true when we actually feel it within ourselves, when we are truly able to sympathize with the other situation and understand what caused what we experience as their desirable behavior. Their less desirable behavior. This is something that is aided by having a psycho-spiritual understanding of how human behavior and development works. So where does that leave us with Christianity and other religions if we don't get so caught up in the beliefs and mindsets and historical stories, and instead remain present to living the messages and following the guidance within them? I'm not saying that we should not have beliefs at all. I am offering my belief right here. I am just saying that we need to watch that we don't become so mindset on them that we put them before love, compassion and kindness, etc. Realign ourselves. Yeah, I thought I jumped 2 pages. I'm not saying that we should not have beliefs. After all, I am offering my own belief right here. I'm just saying that we need to watch that we don't become so mindset on them that we put them before the likes of love, compassion, kindness, forgiveness, etc. These beliefs and mindsets blocking us from being present to the guidance of the Spirit by being preoccupied with what we have come to depend on due to living in disconnect. We are not gaining from what the religion is truly offering us when we end up arguing about who is right and wrong from the tree of knowledge. We are meant to be using the teachings to help us to stay open to one another, not fighting to defend stories and beliefs in such a way that we end up close to one another because we can't see where we're going wrong. For me, religion is not about believing in this or that story and then becoming identified in closed mindsets to defend it. It's about learning to follow the holistic guidance within life so as to realign ourselves with being guided by the Spirit rather than continue to be over-identified with logic as we learn to do in childhood. As I see it, Christianity from a practical application perspective is about mindfully watching the spirit of our actions, watching to see if we are using Jesus' teachings to guide us as we feel for the embodied amening or defilement of the Holy Spirit within us. This amening or defilement is then what informs us of the purity of our behavior, not our own logic and reason. This also being rather than be used by our ego with its inadequacies, or even worse, simply being run by whatever triggers us into reaction. This is what I see as looking after the garden of the pure mind. Now you might say that this is the same thing because I'm identified in believing in those teachings and especially in using them to help us discern. But for me, those teachings always offer a wiser, more loving way of interacting than I could do by myself in this egoic, closed, psychologically functioning, self-protective, self-esteeming operating system. They are always loving and caring and invite us to resist not evil by not dropping to the level of negative energies due to our beliefs and our mindsets having been attacked. The beliefs and mindsets being what we are invested in so that we can cope with life. Having the presence and wisdom to look for the log that may be in our own eye before pointing to what is obscuring the other's ability to see as we would like them to. If we seek first the kingdom of heaven before any word or action, to check that we are about to act in a way that is loving towards our neighbour and serving the coming of a greater kingdom, then we are aligned with what Christianity is teaching us, rather than defend a story or belief because it gives us identity, belonging, and security. This is what I see as behaving from a Christian heart, where we follow the wisdom of Jesus, seeing that he and his teachings are the way. So as I see it nowadays, this is the way and the truth and the life, without any over-identification with religious stories. This being because it is the stories that seem to be what causes us to function psychologically out of our fixed beliefs and mindsets, often in contrast to others following different religions, beliefs, and mindsets. So perhaps another aspect of what I am being guided to do through this book is evidence to you that there really is holistic guidance within and out with us, just as Jesus said there would be, and that we truly can have the kingdom of heaven right here on earth by making sure that all of our words and deeds are in service of that before we act, rather than in service of something less as we continue to do what we have been doing for 2,000 years. For me, this is psycho-spiritual living, where the psyche or soul is turned towards the spirit instead of psychological living, where the psyche or soul is turned towards logic and reason due to generations of conditioning and having no knowledge or experience of doing life another way. Last night, I suddenly received the words, "Why become Christian?" Not "Why become a Christian?" but "Why become Christian?" After a moment or two, I eventually realized the difference between the two offerings. The first seemed to be about what I was actually being, and the second seemed to be more about what I tell myself I affiliate with or believe in. This revelation showing up the tree of life and the tree of knowledge once again. It was not so much a question for me to consider, but more a revelation of the difference between what I am, truly being, tree of life, and what I associate with or tell myself I align with, tree of knowledge. And so the book now definitely seems to be progressing towards offering a Christian context or yardstick for us to measure ourselves against. This being a yardstick that gives us a higher sense of purpose, meaning, and value as we go from day to day behaving and interacting with others in a way that serves more than just ourselves, smaller, lower level selves. But this new revelation tightens things up even further because now I realize that it's not just about joining or following a set of beliefs. It's about how we are being in relation to the teachings of Jesus, rather than what we are believing or belonging to in our societies, as we follow or fit in with the perceived perceptions of others and their limited concepts of what being Christian is. It is about evidencing the difference between walking the walk and talking the talk, and why we are doing it. There is very little crucifying in talking the talk compared to walking the walk. The reason that I add watching for why we are doing it is because we can be doing it for ourselves, or rather for our ego, which is what we really mean most of the time when we use the word self. The true self is actually pure. This is why we need to keep our lamps lit and be vigilant of what lies behind our behaviour, as it is often still our ego seeking praise or admiration or for self-esteem. I suppose this is really what lies behind all of this writing. I am trying to decide if I'm going to fully commit to Christianity and call myself Christian or not, so that I can stand firmly in it with conviction if I do. This explains why I am shooting down what doesn't work for me and affirming what does by referencing them both to the Bible and its teachings, so that my move feels more secure for my ego. My tree of life experience is evidencing and affirming that there is something worthy of aligning with and abiding in, as my disconnected tree of knowledge utilizes logic and reason to arrive at a decision that has felt to give that side of me a sense of security. Arriving at a conclusion is then dependent on receiving enough affirming experiences to outweigh all that causes me resistance in moving from where I am. This situation arises because of the polarity between my own affirming experiences and learnings through Watchman Nee, in contrast to what I see being taught in today's churches. So here we have another revelation. This is also another part of what I'm up to, weighing up the pros and cons from my tree of knowledge before committing fully to Christianity, even though my tree of life simply cannot deny it. So even though I am writing a book about returning to the tree of life from the tree of knowledge, and and my struggle to define a Christianity that works for me, I'm still in my tree of knowledge. Very difficult to transcend and outgrow. And it's not all bad and all wrong. It's a developmental phase that we go through that serves a purpose. Again, this um, self-survival mode, when we're trying to move into this higher level of self-fulfillment mode, and we kind of flux around in the middle, always being pulled down when we have a sense of insecurity. So I'm not trying to make anything wrong, evil, bad. They're just serving different purposes.